What is up, podcast land? Welcome to another episode of the Two Dates and a Dash podcast. I'm your host, Matt Kubler. Before I introduce my co-host, Bronwyn, and our guest, Jan, I want to first let everybody know where they can find the podcast. Obviously, if you're watching on YouTube right now, you can catch us live every time we do a show on my YouTube channel at Matt Kubler. Please make sure you like and subscribe to the show so you can get any updates that come out on other videos that may or may not pique your interest. Secondly, I want to make sure I didn't mention this the last time we did a show, but Bronwyn and I are in the process of we did a deal with a production company for a documentary film on our brother's death and the investigation into his death. And there is a website for anybody who wants to go. If you have any information on Job, no matter how big or small you may think it is, you can go to whokilledjobprice.com. Job is JOBPRICE.com, whokilledjobprice.com. And there is information on how you can get in contact with people from the production company that will field the information from you and take any notes they need to take and contact information. So we appreciate that. Just to give you an update on where that's at, we're currently in negotiation, apparently, with multiple streaming services on who's going to host the show. So the goal is to get this thing to market, and this is apparently the labor-intensive part. The rest, once we get a streaming service who wants to do it, we will begin production, and then it's a freight train, and they say it won't take more than 4 or 5 months to get it done. So we're excited for this to happen, so that Job's name can finally get cleared and justice can be served appropriately, and the Price family can have some peace, and that's really all that we're doing this for. So without further ado, Bronwyn Price, welcome.
Thank you for having me, Matt. Good to be here.
I like your new hat, and your whole motif is very patriotic. I like it.
Hat of the day.
You are the hat lady.
Happy Thanksgiving. I hope you all had enjoyed your Thanksgiving.
I think it was. I had a great Thanksgiving, and I know you did. I watched all the videos from Skit's house, so you guys had a blast. And without further ado, may we introduce Gold Star mom, Jan Anderson, mother of Kevin Houston, a warrior SEAL who died in 2011, August 6, 2011. So welcome to our show, Jan.
Thank you. And thank you so much for having me. It's an absolute pleasure to be able to speak about Kevin. And it's wonderful to meet you, Matt. You're so intensely popular with you on YouTube, and Bronwyn and I kind of go back a bit, so I'm comfortable with you guys, and it's nice to talk to you.
Thanks.
Well, our goal is to get your story out, Kevin's story, from your perspective. So people don't always, people can Google Kevin and they can read all the Navy SEAL Foundation posts and anyone else that posts about him and any articles that might have been written, but to hear it from a mother who tells the story of her son is a whole different thing. And I know, and I said this before the show, and people that follow my podcast or anything I do, they know that I lost my brother when I was 18. And hearing my mom, who has Alzheimer's, still talk so clearly about my brother who died 35 years ago is the most amazing thing to watch. And it rips my heart out, but also fills it with joy to know that my mom can still reflect and capture those memories. So I'm really excited to hear about Kevin through your eyes and all the beautiful things that the memories that you have of him.
Thank you. I'm moving because although I charged, decided that my battery is running low. So,
Technology.
And I plugged it in.
Beautiful.
All right. Sorry for that distraction.
So I did give you a little heads up, and I told you that I'm going to ask one question.
Kevin.
Now, one question is, who is Kevin Houston to you?
Kevin probably was one of the most amazing individuals I've ever known. And I'm speaking from a person, not a personal, but a personal, just not as mommy. In other words,
Right.
if he robbed a bank, I'd be disappointed. But he didn't. And to watch him grow up and achieve his goals, he's just, I don't, sometimes, Brian, and how it goes when there's so many words I want to say and none of them will come out individually.
Do you have a special story about Kevin that you remember of him growing up that might have made you see that he wanted to be in the military?
So I had Kevin in Atlanta in 75.
Hey, Jan, can I pause you for 1 second? Your internet's going in and out.
I was young and dumb and naive.
Okay. The beauty of a live show.
My battery is very
something out here to entertain people.
Yeah.
Oh, look at that's Kevin's shadow box on the wall.
Yeah, those things are and it's to see those in people's homes. Whether it's service guys or parents who are honoring their lost loved one. It's always so touching to see the walls, the memorial walls behind them. Usually, it's a good spot to do these kinds of shows. And I don't know if we lost her. There, she's coming. Well, Bronwyn, it's me and you for right now, which is I think she might be back. Do you got us, Jan?
I've got her on the phone. Hi, Jan.
There we are. We're back.
Okay.
Well, you can't see me, but I see you guys. So goodbye. Can you hear me though?
Yep, we can hear you. You're just frozen. Your video is frozen.
Okay, that's fine. I'm so sorry.
No,
that's okay. This is technology.
We're supposed to be doing this or what? I've become so spiritual since Kevin died. And it's like he and his sister play tricks on me. And I wouldn't be surprised if this is one of them. So it was easily remedied. If it was really bad, it wouldn't have been easily remedied.
Well, Jan, if you want to do me a favor, we can do this the smart way. If you want to log out of the link and just click the link again and come back in like you did before.
Okay.
I think that'll get us back on track.
All right.
We need a theme song.
We do need a theme, and we need to have like applause buttons, the laughter button,
My daughter's room isn't a good background. I need a better backdrop.
We're going with the pure white.
Those are LED. There's a way to change the colors. Maybe next week it'll be something different. I don't know how to work it though.
All right, we got her back.
Yeah, we're back.
All right.
All right.
Let's go back. We're gonna go to the Wayback Machine to about 4 minutes ago.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna ask again, who is Kevin Houston to you?
Kevin is a very brave warrior soldier, jokester, someone who I am very proud of and would love to have been friends with. If I were his age, I'd want to be friends with him. We had a lot of controversy in the beginning in his first few years. Not so much. First 5 years were great, but his dad had a problem. And even though we had a daughter, we had Kevin, we had a daughter, he couldn't overcome his problems. Even with a move to California, it was supposed to help. And because he couldn't overcome his problems, I grabbed Kevin and Miranda and went back to Massachusetts, to Cape Cod, and we started all over, just the three of us.
Wow.
So, picking it up from there, he was 9 when we got there, and she was like 6. 5'6". He was going in 5th grade. And when I took him up to the school, he was going to 5th grade, and they sent a young man from the class up to grab him at the front desk. And he comes bebopping up, and he looked just like the little Sherwin-Williams Dutch boy with the haircut, and short, chunky. He was cute. His name was Joey. He says, "Hi, my name's Joey," as they're walking away. And Kevin said, "Hi, my name's Kevin. I'm going to be a Navy SEAL." And when I heard that, I'm like, what the heck's a Navy SEAL? Because he was going to be one. It wasn't like, I want to be one when I grow up. You know, he was going to be a Navy SEAL. So that in mind, I used to volunteer with my brother. They had triathlons down in Hyannis in the summer. And I noticed that the young man sitting in the ambulance was only about 16 or so, but he had on a type of a uniform. And I said, "Are you the ambulance driver?" And he said, "Yeah." And I said, "How do you get that responsibility being so young?" Well, he said, "I'm in the Sea Cadets." So he went on to tell me all about that. And when Kevin turned 10, I signed him up for the Sea Cadet Corps. And it was at the elementary school that he attended, right in back of our house. Everything was in, well, he didn't walk, he ran. He just ran everywhere he went. And so he enjoyed Sea Cadets. He soaked it in, all that knot tying and saluting and what means what and how you do this and that, like a sponge. And quick story, dry mouth. I remember one day he comes bebopping in, the door slams it. He was after meeting, and he had his couple of pieces of rope with him. And I said, you know, "Hey, and how was it?" And whatever. "Oh, we were learning how to tie knots." And I said, "Really?" And he goes, "Yeah, I mean, there's tons of ways you can tie knots." And he, "Miranda, come here." So they're in the living room. I'm in the kitchen. And after a few minutes, I could hear them just mumbling, you know, and then Miranda's, "Mom!" And I said, "What?" And she said, "Kevin tied me up and he won't let me go."
Oh, that's
and
great.
I go and look in the living room, and Kevin looked right in my face and said, just purely and honestly, "Mom, she's got to learn how to get out of these knots in case she gets kidnapped."
Oh, that's great.
And, you know, take her and ties her up. So I thought for a second, I looked at her, I said, "Keep working at it."
Yeah, that's a good mom.
So, you know, I wasn't going to let her go. But so that's just the story of, you know, his enthusiasm. And I also signed him up for football when he was 10. It was the first year that the town of Barnstable on Cape Cod had like a peewee league. And so I signed him up. My brother paid the fee and I bought his cleats because I didn't want him wearing, you know, Woolworths cleats or whatever. Sorry, I was trying to turn that volume down.
Don't worry about that.
Forget it.
You're good.
So he was 10 and it had to be 10. And so the plays were, all right, this guy's the quarterback. And so try to throw it to that guy, and everybody block, you know, the coach is teaching them football. But if everything else fails, get the ball to Kevin. And so then in the end, everybody was giving him the ball, and he's running for a touchdown.
He was the last
He was
hope.
running down the field one day, defenders coming at him. He stopped. They ran past him, and he kept on going and scored a touchdown. It's like, what he was thinking? How do you know this? You know? And those are the things about him that intrigued me, that I just loved, you know, and
made him exceptional.
And the funny thing is, he never, like, okay, so he and that young man, Joey, they became that day very best of friends. You know, you have that one like
Yeah.
who's the
Right.
other half of you pretty much the whole time you're growing up.
Right.
And that was Joe. And Joe was at my house probably 80% of the time. And we'd watch In Living Color and we'd watch Cops and all these shows and stuff like that. And they would do missions. Kevin, he played football, he played basketball, during school season, whatever. But on weekends, summers, Kevin didn't go out and just get a bunch of kids together and play tag or something. No, they'd make up a mission. He'd say, okay, this is boring. This is what we're going to do. For example, they had another friend named Kevin whose dog, Ozzy, whenever Ozzy got free, she'd take off. So Kevin said, here's the mission. We're going to let Ozzy out, and then we're going to wait 2 minutes, and then we got to get on our bikes and go get her. But in order to catch her, you have to jump off your bike. If you don't jump off your bike to land on her and get her, it didn't count. So they spent a full afternoon with this poor dog, chasing it around on their bikes, leaping off their bikes and catching her. They give her about a half hour to rest up and do it again. That's how he entertained himself. He wasn't happy sitting around playing cards. He was either full tilt or sound asleep.
Was he a good student, or was he more inclined to be brain drifting off into those missions that he's constantly thinking about?
Yeah, he probably was an ADHD, well, not HD, but ADD kid. Kevin was smart, as was my daughter. They were incredibly smart, but more life smart as opposed to book smart. Books, he would read a book about helicopters that were used in Vietnam, or just about the Vietnam War, when he was 10, 11, 12. And then you give him a textbook and he's like, forget that. Kevin maintained a C average so he could play his sports. And that he just said, Mom, and I always was on about getting better grades and how important in the future and blah, blah, blah. But, he just knew he needed C's to be able to play his sports in school. So that's where he was. Arizona State offered him a scholarship, but he would have had to gone to prep school for a year, and they weren't going to pay for that, but they would pay a full year, 4 years, if he went for a year. I was a single mom. I had no clue how to begin to even think about sending him to a prep school for a year.
Right.
And so he wanted to go in the Navy anyways, because he wanted to, that's another thing, because he wanted to be a SEAL. So he taught Joe how to tie a rope around a brick and go, at a 2-story home, throw it up around the chimney, and then it comes down, you tie it off to a tree, and then rappel up the side of the house and sit on the roof for a while. And this is my neighbor's house across the street.
Oh,
said,
what do your neighbors think about that?
Ranch. Well, our roof isn't tall enough. And then they rappel down, and then they, pull the rope down, and off they go. He just all these different skills that he would try because he heard about them, so he's going to try them, and never got caught. They were mischievous, but they weren't malicious at all in their play. But they certainly had a small amount of being mischievous and stuff, growing up. So
boys.
I wish he was a better student. He did graduate. What can I say? So
I think we're learning now. I mean, hindsight 2020. We're learning now that the measure of intelligence isn't necessarily as tied to a class grade as once thought. Right? There's now a whole channel of kids that are
Well, there are different types of intelligence too. I mean, you can't standardize intelligence.
No, you can't, and they try, or used to, anyways. You know, I think it's getting better for kids now in school. I'm not, directly related to it right now. Anybody in school? I got a little grandson. He's 4, and they've got him in preschool at an academy. They're actually paying for education for him. So I think that's the way at this point, those kids, they kind of get observed and recognized for where their strengths are, and where their weaknesses are. And so they can capitalize on, improving and whatever.
When did you say Kevin was born? He's a 70s kid?
75.
Okay. Yeah, he's a couple years younger than me. But being in that, growing up in the 70s and the 80s, that is, you learned how to be self-sufficient. You learned how to be, you were kicked out of the house. Mom didn't know where you're at until the lights came on at night.
Well, you played differently. You played differently. A lot of the things that we did back then, today would be frowned upon.
I know. They were latchkey kids.
Yeah.
I came home last. And when I came home, all my living room furniture would be turned upside down because they were playing the game where you don't touch the ground.
Yeah, lava.
Oh, floor's lava.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's great.
That one. Or I walk in the door and they're both standing against the counter with their arms crossed. And I'm like, uh-oh. Kevin put 2 eggs over the door. He wanted them to drop on my head, but they didn't. So
I had to have a babysitter for my brother and I. We called her the referee. Her name was Nancy Clark, but she would have to babysit us because we would fight. And my mom wouldn't get home from work till late, so this girl had to come over to make sure we didn't hurt each other,
kill each other. Yeah. Well, Kevin, because there was no father in the household, Kevin, on occasion when he was really, Miranda, she's a whole nother exciting bundle of joy stories. That girl had so much energy and was so naive though, but Kevin would get, because he's here in the community. And if somebody, I saw your little sister in front of 7-Eleven at 3 a.m, because she snuck out. Well, that didn't reflect good when she was 13, 14. He'd punch her in the arm. And I'd tell him, I told him once or 1,000 times, don't punch your sister in the arm or anywhere else. No, that's my job. One day I came home from work. She had 2 of her friends over and they're in the kitchen and Miranda's standing there looking like the cat that ate the mouse. And she said, aren't you going to ask me where Kevin is? She was 14. He was 17. I said, okay, I'll bite. Where's Kevin? He's in jail. I had him arrested for domestic violence because he punched her in the arm one too many times. And I thought about it. And I said, what? And she said, Mom, I'm sick of it. I said, you know what? Good for you. So the phone rings and it's Kevin. Mom, $25. Come and get me. I'm like, no, I've been telling you for years, don't punch your sister in the arm. You can spend the night there and I'll see you at court tomorrow. He's like, my mom won't even come and get me out. And then he's like, will you bring me food? And I said, you can eat jail food. He goes, oh, well, they're going to buy me Burger King because the whole town loved Kevin. Everybody knew him. Police knew him. Everybody. Where it takes a village to raise a child, that's an example.
Well, Kevin has a single mom, right?
Oh, yeah. With 2 kids that had so much energy, I kept redirecting and talk to them with common sense. Why do I have to take out the trash? Because it's your job. Yeah, but why do I have to take the trash out? Because if you don't, your house is going to smell like garbage. You want your friends to come over and smell your house like garbage? Fine. And I never had to tell him again. He'd take garbage. Even as an adult, I'd be at his house when he was home and watch him take the trash out and reflect right back to Cape Cod, you know, in those occasions.
Oh.
He just, a lot of people say he was like me. And I feel so honored when they tell me that. And I kept asking him, how is he so strong that he could, you know, get through so much, like go through buds and go through, when he was in Japan, he was driving in a car around a corner, put it in a parking lot. He'd never driven on the other side of the car on the other side of the street. All he was doing was going around the corner. But he was at a 5-way intersection, and the Japanese national riding his motorcycle was running through a light at 90 miles an hour, dumped his bike, and he slid under the car that Kevin was moving. And what are we taught here? If there's no huge damage or whatever, pull over to the side of the road.
Right.
Yeah, the guy died because he pulled over to the side of the road. So now he's in Japan, charged with vehicular manslaughter.
Wow.
So they got him a lawyer and blah, 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 and everything worked out. But when I talked to him, he's like, Mom, I killed somebody. And I said, what do you mean, Kevin? He said, I killed somebody. I was driving this car. And he goes, I thought I went over like a log or something. It was a big bump. He said, and I got out and checked under the car. I mean, he felt under there and pulled his hand away. It was full of blood and brains and stuff like that. And, you know, so I mean, that's pretty traumatizing. It was for me anyways. I wanted to go to Japan and sit with him.
Right. Yeah, that sounds pretty traumatizing.
So we did the best we could. Community wrote letters to the judge and, you know, all that kind of thing. It made not the sports headline in the Boston Globe, because everybody in Boston was following his sports career. And yeah, it was crazy.
Wow.
So to be so strong to go through something like that.
Yes.
And then to go through buds for him. I'm not saying it was easy. It's never easy for anybody. But Kevin was capable of escaping into his brain. He got in a motorcycle accident senior year. He slid in some sand, went ass over tea kettle, and at the bottom of the spine where there used to be ribs, but there aren't now, we still have these stubby little bones, broke one off.
Ooh.
So they can't do anything, right? You know, it just floats around in there. But obviously, he was in pain and this and that. So when I got to the ER, because the friend told me he'd call an ambulance, I got to the ER, and the nurse said to me, "Can you talk to him? He won't talk to me. I can't give him pain meds," because he wouldn't talk to her. He wasn't unconscious, but she knew that. But he wasn't present. So I'm getting down in his face and his ear. Kev, Mom, it hurts. I said, I know how bad. Mom, I'm dying. That gave the nurse, you know, the image.
The pain meds.
Pain meds. I said, well, you have to talk to the nurse.
Right.
So they tried to let him go, and he fainted on us when we tried to stand him up. They hadn't checked his urine for blood, so I had him do that. And so they checked him into the hospital and put him in the end room in the pediatrics ward. So when you open the door, his room was right there. This was senior weekend, and he was supposed to be the prom king. And he's in the pediatrics ward with a bad, you know, broken bone off his back. So night of the prom, all these limos or cars, they drive up, and the couples would go up and see him, and they're all dressed. And then they'd leave, and then they came back later, and the nurses were like, you know, and They were all very respectful.
That's cool.
But they were up all night, coming and going. And his girlfriend, oh God, his girlfriend, she put on her prom dress and she stayed there with him. Man, she was the love of his life. But another memory. So I digress. I always kept asking him, how are you so strong? And finally, it was like his last Mother's Day card to me. And it was, mother, blah, blah, blah. And, blah, blah. And then he wrote on the bottom, you keep asking me how I'm so strong. It's because of you. You led us from the front.
Oh,
I love you very much. Your son, Kevin A. Houston.
oh,
I'm
that's
going to get
amazing.
tattooed on my arm.
You should. That's awesome.
Yeah. It's I don't know. I never. Go ahead.
Let's talk about Kevin's time in the military and what it was like when he decided to join the Navy, when he left for the Navy, and kind of his progression through the Navy to where he got into the SEALs.
Okay. So he enlisted, sometime senior year. He was supposed to actually go to boot camp that June of '94 after graduation. But because he had the broken bone in his back, he had to wait. And in December of '94, they took him up to the Navy doctors in Boston and they checked him out and gave him clearance. And so off he went in January of '95 to Great Lakes.
Cold.
But he was used to the cold. We lived on Cape Cod and we got our fair share. So, but yeah, what a time to go to boot camp. But he already knew at boot camp everything that you're taught at boot camp because he learned it in Sea Cadets. So he was very bored and he didn't strive. He wasn't the kind of kid who wanted to be the leader of the class or the flag, the carrier, or the award for the cleanest bunk. That wasn't him. He kept his bunk clean. He didn't need to be recognized constantly or whatever. Got along with everybody, finished boot camp. We went out for his boot camp graduation. And from there, he had to sign up for an A school. And so he took the whatever tests and he got appointed to go to an A school in Nevada for electrician's mate. I think that's what it is. So, and he was there and he went through that A school. And then from there, he was assigned to Japan, but Japan turned out to be a mess. They sent him back when he finished the court stuff. Then the Navy sent him back. He had to go in front of a board to make sure that his crime was, he could continue on. So that at the time was located under the Golden Gate Bridge, and he ended up being in San Francisco. And, they said yes. So they assigned him to Helicopter Squadron 2 aboard the USS Constitution aircraft carrier in San Diego. And on HS2, that's when he got his first citation, his first award. His quick action in there was a man overboard, and his quick action in securing a helicopter pilot and communicating, the area, getting the communication, the comms set up, saved this guy's life.
That's great.
So he got a commendation in that, and that made him feel good because he helped somebody. That he did his job doing what he was tasked to do. So he also got to know the rescue divers. because they were riding in helicopters. Kevin's job was to help land them, get them ready, that kind of thing. So knowing the rescue divers, then he started asking them, how do you get to be a rescue diver, Navy diver? So, and he used to go snowboarding with them and stuff. Oh, so much fun. One of them went on to become a Delta pilot, and I met him. And when I met him, he had in his hand a fistful of letters all these years later from different guys on the HS2 crew who, knowing Kevin meant to them.
Oh, that's
And
wonderful.
So beautiful to read. It's very heartwarming to know you raise someone who makes a difference.
Yes.
That's what I love about Kevin. I knew it'd come along during the course of conversation. He made a difference when you met him. You met him. I met a girl here. She just moved here. She was in the Navy. What'd you do in the Navy? I was whatever she was, office thing. Mm-hmm. Where? San Diego in the helicopter squadrons. I was at HS-10. When? Oh, blah, 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 dates. I said, my son was in the line on HS-2. When? Blah, blah, blah. Here, I'll show you his picture. Because then she went on a 2-week shakedown cruise on the Constitution.
Oh, wow.
Met Kevin.
Huh.
I met him, she said. I know him. Oh. He used to work with the helicopters. We shook hands, and all these years later, I meet this woman out of the blue.
That's wonderful.
Who shook my son's hand on an aircraft carrier in 1996.
That's amazing.
Isn't that amazing? Does that happen to you, Bron, when you're just minding your own business and it's like...
It is amazing, though, when you realize how far stretching a person's presence on this earth can be, especially when they make a positive impact on other people. And that goes on that legacy to last for a lifetime. It's kindness, even a simple kindness.
It's crazy. That's another thing I love about him, is just the fact of who he was keeps him alive. I'll be minding my own business and somebody will, see I have a seal something on. And, that was that extortion something, right? Yeah. Oh, man, I was over there when that happened. That was really,
Yeah.
And, I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy.
Does it help you to talk when people want to talk? Or do you feel like sometimes people, like I sometimes find people, when you have a loss, people are afraid to talk about the person who's lost because they don't want to.
I don't know why.
Yeah.
I put it out there all the time on Facebook, whatever. Call me.
Right.
Call me with stories. I want to.
Right. And I think sometimes you also feel like you talk so much people don't want to hear anymore. So
that's why I'm glad I'm talking to you guys, because I can talk all I want.
That's right. And
my counselor told me I did not. Okay, so there's Gold Star dad in the Extortion 17 mess who had become at some point that guy that when he starts walking towards your group, you kind of go, oh no, it's very opinionated, wasn't a listener. Well, my son, and what really, and it's like, you don't know when to shut up, and so I say that because I didn't want to become like that. And I knew just even from my son, I have one child left, my son, Craig, who Bronwyn, and
a grandchild.
And
a grandchild.
Oh, my little Levi. And I didn't want to be that person. So I was talking to my counselor and she said, what we're going to do is this. She said, I know. She got out of her chair and put her arm like she's doing it around her waist. aren't you tired of carrying a full-size Kevin around with you? And I was like, oh my God. She kind of hit it. She goes, let's cut a beautiful paper Kevin out. Now let's fold him up. We're going to slip him in your pocket. And he stays there. But when it's appropriate, you're allowed to take him out.
Oh, that's good advice.
Oh, you have relieved me of so much. It was, even I knew I was carrying too much, precedent.
Right.
But when you love someone like that, and he's such a unique individual. It's like, I want to tell you about this. They're never going to meet him. They get tired of hearing about him. They get tired of hearing, your rhetoric or my rhetoric, whatever.
Right.
And, I just have some pictures of him here.
Well, show us. And is there a memorial that you have to
3 months?
Oh my goodness, what a cutie.
He was a cutie. Then at 4 years, we're still at the beach course.
Oh.
I just tie a towel around your neck and you're Superman or whatever.
Oh.
And I have a different picture of him from the same day. And if you could see his thighs, they're already muscles. And then my senior in high school, who played defense,
nice,
saved the game, the annual Thanksgiving game, on a defensive move. He caused a fumble. He landed on it, held on to the ball, and the clock ran out, and they won. So, he was always interviewed and stuff anyways. This is one of the last pictures I think taken of him.
Oh. Where was that?
Pardon?
Do you know where that was?
Yeah, well, it's over in Afghanistan on that deployment.
I'm going to interject a little bit about your not wanting to be that person.
Yeah, I do.
Coming from a non-military loss, but my brother was autistic and stuttered and wasn't profoundly at the time growing up. I was his older brother, even though I was 3 years younger.
Yes.
I took care of him. I became the older brother. And so I didn't look at him in a way like you looked at Kevin as being this amazing young child growing up, doing all these mischievous things and having fun and being this growing young boy that you knew was going to become this great SEAL at some point in time. And my brother was just not that. And he was needed. He was needy.
Yes.
And I felt needed. And growing up, and he died, right when I was graduating high school. And I spent a long time very depressed and
of course you did.
Angry. And I ended up writing a book after a moment of grace that God showed me and about my brother's life. And it wasn't until I wrote that book and published it and had book signings and sold it that people would send me emails. My brother worked at a camp in the summer. He cut grass and stuff. It was a Christian camp. And he would live there for most of the summer. So he had a life there for 2 months or so every year.
Yeah.
4 years that I didn't know about. And these people named their kids after my brother. Like
yes.
built a gymnasium after my brother and named it in my brother's name. Like you don't know.
And isn't that legacy?
How impactful someone's life will be. And you can't predetermine that.
Yeah.
But if you become a good sharer of who they are and you engage with somebody that you didn't know, knew him, and you listen then to their version of Kevin. That's why I love having these kinds of conversations, because I want to hear about Kevin through your eyes, right? I want to know who he was to his mom. Right. And those conversations, people wanted to hear what my brother was like through my eyes. But then I learned more. I healed more from his loss by hearing who he was through theirs.
Thank you. And I just want to mention that my husband's middle child, Cody, has autism, and he is definitely on the spectrum. I met him and the kids when they were, very young. He was 8 when I first met him, I think. And so I am familiar with, characteristics involved with someone who is on that spectrum. Everything Cody does, he has to have an aide with him, and he works now and lives with his mom and plays golf and bowls. He does all the Special Olympics stuff. He's won so many medals doing that. He used to work in the school store with his older brother, Kyle. And Kyle, somebody would come, they wanted to buy, 10 pencils. Cody, how much is 10 pencils? 39 cents. 39 cents. He wouldn't sit there and do the math. Are you kidding? He'd ask Cody. Cody knew like that. And everybody loved Cody. He had just such a kind character. And what you're saying, I can totally appreciate. And I think it's absolutely wonderful. I want to read your book.
Okay.
So,
I'll make sure I'll send you a copy.
That'd be cool.
But your son with Kevin, like that, those stories of hearing people say that, like the pilot with the note, handful of notes, like that, I almost started crying when I heard that. Just those words that he had notes from people who wrote them because they wanted to make sure someone knew how important your son was to them.
Yeah.
And as a mom, I can only imagine, as a father, my daughter's 26, my son's 22. Like, I want to make sure that when their life, however, I hope they live to be old and well past me, but whenever their life is over, that they lived a life worthy of remembrance.
Yes.
And I think Kevin did that. And the thing that I value the most from you tonight is sharing that so that people can hear it, because someone's going to hear this story and go, I remember Kevin from blah.
Oh, I hope so.
And they're going to reach out and they're going to share their version of Kevin that they remember.
Oh, I hope so.
And that's the beauty of the internet. That's the beauty of doing podcasts, is you can have those unprepared memories of your son that you didn't know existed.
Right.
So thankful that you received.
I posted on Thanksgiving on my Facebook page. I think I posted on Kevin Houston Memories page, and I meant to post it on my personal page, but it just simply said, I'm thankful for every single person whose paths have crossed mine through this journey.
Yes.
And if I forget how I word it, but since Kevin's death, and I said something to the effect, if a memory pops in your brain while you're reading this, I am thankful for you.
Oh.
And I sent text to some of his very closest friends, just saying I'm thankful you were there, because
Jan, do you find through the years, is it more difficult? Do people reach out less as time passes?
Oh, yeah. I thought, there's people you thought would there are 2 people, maybe 3, that I'm still in touch with, that will always be in touch with me. One of them's Joey from school, because Kevin went back to the Cape every summer for a week, and he'd stay at Joe's and they'd go here, there, and whatever.
Yeah.
The other one is, God, it just went blank. Oh, he's going to kill me. Duh.
Well, we'll come back to it.
Yeah, we will.
It's going to pop in your head while we're in mid-conversation.
What Joe was, so.
So I want to take us to probably the hardest part of this conversation. And
okay.
It's going to be when you found out about Kevin's death.
Yeah.
Because I have my version, my story about how I found out about my brother's death. Bronwyn has hers. And I want to hear about yours.
So Kevin always came home. Kevin had been to Iraq, he'd been to Afghanistan, on how many deployments? First with SEAL Team 4. Then he got sick of being a vanilla SEAL, so he decided to, apply for 6. And they accepted him to Green Team class, which is training for 6. And he said that made buds look like kindergarten. And just an aside, coincidentally, he had been out with a couple guys riding their motorcycles, slid some sand. He had the worst road rash from his wrist all the way up his arm to his shoulder. It destroyed his tattoos. It was nasty. Went to the ER. There was sand and dirt and rocks and tar and probably bubble gum and tobacco in there. You know? Navy says, we want to roll you to the next class. Kevin says, no, you're not. He went through green team with first and second and third degree road rash.
Wow.
Some of the guys I talked to said it was so nasty because they'd have to do training in Tennessee or somewhere out where it was real summer and mucky, and they're all shirtless, and Kevin's got a long sleeve shirt on, and blood and pus is coming through, you know. And so, anyways, needless to say, he still made it.
Wow.
So he went on many deployments with SEAL Team 6 and became, so I'm kind of split here now. I'm going off into a different territory. You asked me about Kevin up to a certain point, I'm right there.
Yep.
Then the territory kind of shifts because he wasn't allowed to talk about what he did.
Right.
He didn't care about receiving citations and medals.
That's right.
So all I knew was, you know, he was off shooting bad guys, and they were teamed up and coordinated, and off they went. You know, I mean, I knew some stuff, and we won't go into that here, but he always came home. Right. We always had a family dinner. We would leave. I would know that when I hugged him goodbye and we kissed goodbye, and I said, I love you, and he said, I love you, Mom, I always knew 3 to 6 months later, whatever the length of deployment was he'd come home. With this last deployment, he was leaving on a Wednesday. 2 days before, I was at work, minding my own business with my supervisor, doing our stuff and laughing it up. And she said, why are you crying? And I said, what do you mean? She goes, why are you crying? You have tears streaming down your face. And I'm like, I don't know. She said, well, you know, go take some time if you want, you know, think about it, get yourself together, whatever. And I go into our office and I'm sitting there with my hands in my chin in my hands going, God, the first thing that popped into my brain, please don't tell me this has anything to do with Kevin's deployment. I texted her and said, do you have any funny feelings at all about this upcoming deployment? And she responded with, I can't go there. I'm not going to go there. Nope. I said, okay. You know, and I'm just curious. So kind of got myself together, went back out there. I don't know, you know, I don't know. But it happened again a couple hours later, and I went back in the office and I went, I just pray this doesn't have anything to do with his deployment. It's not like somebody pinched me and ow, I'm crying because that hurt. It's not like my husband called and said, I just moved out. I'll never see you again. It's not, you know, oh, boo-hoo, that hurts. This was like
random tears. Yeah.
Random tears from heaven.
And an ache, I'm sure.
Yeah. So I tried, you know, I kind of put it in the back of my brain, whatever. And that Wednesday comes. So we had dinner together. Now the routine is that we all have dinner at his house. And, you know, when we have our goodbyes, I'm good. I know he's going to use all his Skyping time and email with the family, who I haven't seen in 13 years, by the way. End of story there. But he would use that time, and that's the only reason I bring that up, to check on the kids and how's the house and how's everything okay, I was good. So that night we all had dinner. We went to say our goodbyes, and Michael, the bro hug and I love you, dude, and a little more sentimental than usual. I was like, wow. And then Craig, hugging his brother and, be careful, be safe, that kind of thing. And then mommy, I just held on to him tighter, and he was hugging me tighter. And, we pecked on the lips like you do, love you. Such soft lips and more hugs. And I said, all right, we're going to go. I'll see you on the other side. And I went, oh my God, what did I just say? And I mean, it just wasn't a conscious.
Right.
And then Kevin still has his arms around me. He backs up and looks down at me. He goes, what do you mean? I'll see you on the other side. And I said, of your deployment when you come home in October. I'll see you in October when you come home from your deployment. Okay, Mom. And we just hugged and kissed again, and I left. That night, around 12:32, my phone rang, and it was him. And he never did this. And he called, and I answered, and I said, hi, Kev. He goes, Mom, I'm just calling to make sure that you know how much I love you.
Aww.
He said, oh, Kevin, thank you. I'm so glad you called. No, I love you too. You're the peas to my carrots. I mean, he and I have been like, since he was the day he was conceived, if you will. But
Mama's boy.
He goes, well, I got to get on this helicopter. I said, yeah, okay. He goes, but it's just really important to me that you know how much I love you. And I said, I understand. I love you too, Kev. Talk to you later. And that was that. Those were the last words. They weren't, what do you mean the other side? His last words were, it's important to me that you know how much I love you.
Oh.
When Miranda passed, her last words to me before she fell into a coma type state, when she was climbing back in her bed, we had talked about going to heaven. I said, from what I understand, look for people you know. Look for Uncle David. Look for Grammy. Look for anybody that you've known that's passed before you. And she was climbing in her bed with her long, skinny legs and sighed. And she goes, Mommy, I love you. I said, I love you too, honey. And I tucked her in, and she fell into this coma state and never spoke again. And those were her last words to me. How blessed am I?
That's amazing.
How blessed am I that I was allowed to raise these kids? I don't know if the kids pick, if God picks. He must think I'm an emotional badass, though, because they were pretty.
You are an emotional badass.
Strong-spirited people, and he took them both on me. But I digress. That Friday, so it would have been August 5th. Michael and I steam cleaned the house, and then we, put everything away, and we went down to the car races. They have a 3/8 dirt oval track down in Elizabeth City in North Carolina, and they were having the sprint cars, and I like the sprint cars. So we went down to to the track, and we didn't get home till like midnight, which is, which is unusual for us, and fell asleep. Phone rings. Oh, it was about 8 in the morning. No, I lied. It was more like 7. And I answered the phone. Hello. Hi, is this Kevin's mom? Yeah. Yeah, who's this? Oh, I'm a friend of Kevin's. Excuse me, I wanted to talk to you. And Kevin's friends have spent the night here as a halfway point going south or north. So, not frequently, but often. So it wouldn't have been unusual for one of Kevin's friends just to,
Right. Pop in.
I said, well, let me give you directions. Oh, I'm already here. I'm in front of the house. And meanwhile, Michael's looking at me going, who is it? I said, it's a friend of Kev's. They're outside at the front of the house. I said, come on in. We'll put on some coffee. I'm all excited because it's a friend of Kevin's. Well, Michael had our bedrooms in the back, and Michael had seen through the other bedroom front window the brass in the uniforms. He said he'll never forget how the sun hit the brass
Reflected. Wow.
on their dress uniforms. But I didn't see them. I'm just like trying to throw on something,
You think you're having
pants and a t-shirt, put hair, I'm all excited. So he's making coffee. I go open the front door. Then I look, there's 3 of them. Look, the first one, the second one, third one, they're all standing at attention. The third one's got tears streaming down his face.
Ugh.
I said, I don't feel like doing this today. And I closed the door. So I started walking, and you walk from the front door, and there's like this area where the hall and the dining room and living room and front door and kitchen sort of all make this octagonal opening, if you will. My knees went out under me, and Michael had gone and opened the door, and my head started blowing up. The snaps and pops and pops and snaps and bursts of energy. It was getting hot in my head. My eyes were closed. My head was popping and snapping. One of these guys kept trying to tell me something about the president appreciating something. And I'm like, don't talk to me. You're at the wrong house. My Kevin comes home. You're at the wrong house. You got the wrong Kevin. You know the movie where the guy gets up and everybody else is dead, but he shoulders his rifle and limps off in the sunset? Yeah, that's my kid. So you are at the wrong house and you need to leave. And I started getting really loud. And the popping and the snapping in my head was just unbelievable. It's just like, I've never felt it and I'll never feel it again.
Right.
I was rewiring. This is what it felt like. Pop, pop, snap.
It's like you're not in your body almost.
It's not like anything I've ever felt, heard, seen. Just I'm sitting there on the floor with my head blown up.
What'd they tell you happened?
Well, eventually I got through that, and then and this is funny because it sounds like, that went on for a couple of minutes, maybe a minute and a half, but it felt like an hour. And then finally I'm thinking, well, maybe, and I finally started quieting down. Michael was standing off to my left, and Craig had heard me. He was up in the Frog. His girlfriend was staying with us, and they were to my right, standing in the kitchen door. And I started quieting down a little bit, you see a movie where the mother gets notified of something and you hear they let out this primal scream.
Right.
You're watching something, and this particular actress is really good at her primal scream. I asked Michael, I said, did I ever do that? And he goes, yeah, but worse because it was real. I don't even remember that part. But I finally quieted down. And I finally, he was holding my hand, the one guy, and he said, I've got to tell you that on behalf of the president and a grateful nation and blah, blah, blah. And then I went, oh, ugh, and just crying. But I mean, it still was like, not really. Inside, I'm thinking, okay, I'll play the game, but nah, not my Kev. What happened? What had happened was they made up this whole story because everybody was the very best at their jobs. So it had to look like they're all dead and they're all teamed up in the mountains up in Afghanistan, and they're a whole new unit, and we'll never see them again, but they'll be killing bad guys and doing what, His friend Joey and I went off on that for about 3 or 4 months. But, you get to where you know the truth. And so we went into our den and sat on the couch, and I asked about Craig Vickers in particular. I enjoyed knowing him. He was from Hawaii, beautiful man. Beautiful.
Yeah, his whole family is amazing family.
Yes. And of course he was, he was on there, and I was like, no. They said his whole troop was killed. And I said, what do you mean? And are you familiar with these names? And they started saying names, and I'm like, yeah. Tomlinson, yeah. Workman, yeah. And well, what about Jesse Pittman? Yeah. Those were the old time guys, and they worked together for several years as a team. They knew when each other were going to breathe. And how can that be? What do you mean? How can that be? I hate to say this, but you know what I thought of?
No.
You ever see Beetlejuice?
Yeah.
And the whole football team dies in a bus accident.
Right.
And they all go to heaven and they're sitting there on seats.
Right.
That's what it made me think of.
Oh.
that scene in Beetlejuice. And I didn't get the full story then. We talked and they were investigating. My first conscious concern was that Joey needed to hear this news directly from me. His aunt out in California, his father's sister needed to hear this news directly from me. And a very close friend, Ty, that he went to high school with, who lives here now. There were 4, and Ken McConnell. There were 4 people that I wanted to make sure they heard it first from me. And so I made, and then I was concerned about, of course, the wife and kids. And so I made those phone calls, and the Navy, we talked for a couple hours, and then they left, and around 1:30 or so in the afternoon, I went over to the house, and it was polar opposite of going how it used to be when it was Kevin's house, when he was there. I went to open the door, and some chick, I don't even know who it was, a lot of wives, SEAL wives, not widows of the guys that died, but the community, if you will. About 11 of them descended in her house, took the house phone, her cell phone, the laptop, everybody had their little piece of job. Somebody was in charge of the door. Somebody was in charge of the bathroom. I don't know, but I went to open the door and this foot stopped the door and this face peeks around and says, "I'm sorry, we're not taking any visitors." I'm like, get the fuck out of, oh my God.
And you can say fuck. We're okay with that.
Get the fuck out of my way.
Ooh.
And I pushed against the door, and now I said, "I'm here to see my daughter-in-law and my grandkids." For years, we had been a family, Christmases, holidays, everything, intensely together. And that day I found out that I got thrown away like a paper cup, as did Craig, as did Michael. Anyways.
That happens with a lot of families. It's I hear a lot of stories of.
I don't know why. Well, I guess I have many reasons why. Narcissism pokes in my brain. However, I am not going to talk about them from this point on. I have learned, again, in the last 13 years, that if and when my grandkids want to talk to me, my grandson doesn't know Kevin. He doesn't even know him. He was 3. He knew the Navy SEAL. He didn't know. He didn't know the Sea Cadet. He didn't know the football player. He didn't know the kid who should have been prom king, who climbed on people's houses, and in the summertime they'd run and they'd roll under people's decks that were having backyard parties and look up women's skirts. You know, I got a kid who is 16 years old who used to throw his arms around me and call me nanny when I came in the house, that I don't even know. My granddaughter is old enough to have her own daughter. She's not calling me, texting me, seeing me, nanny this, nanny. We spent a lot of time together as a family. But
I think there's an important part to this that is probably not talked about enough. There are levels, and I'm not as an outsider looking at and experiencing it through the Price family. There are levels of gold starness, right? There are the spouse and children, and then there's the rest of them, right? That the level of attention, the level of recognition, the level of respect, information, the sharing, it changes depending on where you fall in that hierarchy. And that's not pointing fingers. It's just a reality of it.
I think it does, though, sometimes create a little bit of strife, because I'm not sure that when these boys go over there that they realize that when you put down next of kin, you're writing also that your parents aren't having access to information. I don't think they understand that.
No, because they
understand they have to put down and be clear. I don't think that's explained well enough. That, well, would you like your parents to have equal access? Well, they don't. Anybody understands that they wouldn't get it. You know,
they don't get asked that, though. They get advised on, this is the norm. Kevin had been married to her since 97. Now, I never met her. They married because he was living on an aircraft carrier. She was living in a place up in Santa Rosa. He met her in San Francisco. She had to find a place to live because Dad was going back to Peru or Cuba or somewhere that he was from. And so they decided, if we get married, and she had a little guy, 18 months old, Michael, he's so cute. If we get married, I'll get a housing subsistence or whatever. We can get an apartment. I won't have to sleep on under the landing deck on an aircraft carrier anymore. We'll actually have an apartment. So that's all her housing problem, his housing problem. He'll get extra income because now he's got a larger family. She'll get insurance because now she's a wife and her child will also have insurance. everybody will be secure and neat and tied up in a nice bundle. He says to me on the phone before they went and got married in Reno. And I said, do you love her? Well, yeah, well, yeah, I mean, yeah, we love each other, I'm like, no, that's not the right way to say it. And there was no talk. I said, look, it says in my book of parenting rules that no son should marry someone without their mother first having met them. So you're not allowed to get married. Yeah, that didn't work either.
I was about to say, how'd that go?
I'll tell you what worked. I said, fine, you call me on Monday and let me know if I'm a mother-in-law or not. Phone rings on that Monday. He says, you're not a mother-in-law. I said, good. I'm glad you changed your mind. We didn't change our mind. It was Easter weekend and every place was closed. I said, good. Now you're going away for 6 months on your Westpac cruise on your aircraft carrier. If she's still there when you get back, revisit it, whatever. But chances are she's not going to be. She'll find somebody else. Fingers crossed. No, she was there waiting with bated breath. And off they go to Reno and they get married. And like I said, they got married in 97. She's a very smart, pretty young woman. Lovely stepson, step grandson, whatever, Michael. Extremely smart, Michael. Oh my gosh. Kevin raised him and they raised him right. He is now a cryptographer for the Navy.
Oh, wonderful.
He's brilliant. He's brilliant. They had Jaina when he was in Buds. She was born just before he graduated. And then little Ethan came along, and like I said, he was about to have his 3rd birthday when Kev was killed, and Kevin was in love. He was ready to change a lot of things internally because he was in love with that boy. You know how SEALs can be with the SEAL bars and the frog hogs and the drinking all night, blah, 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 which of course Kevin loved to go out and party. And she'd, have to go pick him up. I live 6 minutes away though. You can't call me at 2 a.m. and say, hey, can you run over here so I can go get Kevin? You can't call me and say, can you just come over here because the kids are asleep and I don't want to wake them up. No, you're going to haul your kids out of their beds. I mean, that's not beneficial to the kids or to Kevin. Then it got to where Kevin wouldn't even call her. He spent a week away from the house to set the rules. That's another side of Kevin. Okay, this is the way it's going to be. And but he was Adam Brown's best friend. Adam Brown walked with Christ hand in hand. And because of Adam, Kevin went to an altar call to May before he was killed and accepted Christ into his heart and recognized that voice that tells you to do the right thing is your soul. It's your Christ in you. You're never alone. You're only alone if you don't acknowledge this is personal. This is just a personal feeling. We shared it. That's the voice of Christ within telling you what's right. And if you choose not to listen, it's got whatever lesson that is, it's going to keep coming around until you get it. And I have found that's how life has been. Until I hear, no, you shouldn't do that. Oh, screw it, I'll do it anyways. And then another 6 months later, another situation. See, you should have learned last time. You shouldn't do this. Yeah, but it sounds like so much fun. Sometimes it takes 3 years to learn the same lesson you should have learned 3 years ago, but you weren't ready. and Kevin was ready.
And I would say, I would say and I'm just listening and absorbing all that's not this part bringing up about Kevin finding Christ before he died is poignant in the fact that, when you said, I'll see you on the other side, and he never said that before, and that stuck with him so much so that he called you to tell you that he needed you to know that he loved you. That was Christ working in him. Like those were those moments where he listened to that voice.
Yeah.
That I need you, Jesus saying, I need you to do this, son. And I think that's a very important thing to hold on to at the end.
Oh, absolutely. Well, one step further, just to show you some of the spirituality that I've gained is that now I'm in there. I used to go in the shower to hoot and holler and stomp my feet and be mad at God. You took my daughter. Now you got to take Kevin. And Kevin, you shouldn't have taken, you don't need anybody else. Why has it got to be him? Don't take Craig on me. You take Craig on me, I'll visit your door myself. Just like, oh my God, I was mad. And one day, about 6 weeks after he died, and I had been hooting and hollering, I was just sick of it. So I was just taking a shower. I heard Mom. I said, that's Kevin. Mom, that's Kevin. And it was inside me. It's not like I looked out, where are you? It wasn't. It was in my heart, in my soul. And I thought to myself, that is Kevin. He said, we wanted you to know we're sorry we had to leave you so soon. You can't make this up.
Mm-mm.
The first thing I thought was he's found his sister. They found each other together. He said, Mom, it's beautiful here. And I said, he didn't use the F word. He's in heaven. That's the first thought I had. And then he said, but we really wanted you to know that we're sorry we had to leave you so soon.
Oh.
Well, I was on my knees boo-hooing and thanking God for, an hour. And Kevin, we bought this house in 2015. He's been here. I've been with him. He's been here. I was asleep. I knew somebody was coming. I knew I had to get up and go to the door, and I did. And I opened the door, and here comes Kevin. Got on his red snowboarding jacket he used to have, his blue jeans, white sneakers, Boston Red Sox hat, always. Hi, Mom. It's like, Kevin. He goes, I wanted to check your house out. And he came in the front door and he stood in the foyer. When you stand in the foyer, you look this way and you see the front living room and this dining room. If you lean forward, you see our beautiful, great big den with a wood-burning fireplace. You see that we have a super wide galley kitchen, long, with a big cutout through it so I can cook and watch football. And then he looked down the hall and he goes, just like Ellsworth, that's the street we used to live on in Cape Cod in the ranch. And yes, the bedrooms and bathrooms are set up the same. I said, yeah, just like Ellsworth. He goes, wow, you guys did a good job. And he's walking out the door. I'm like, wait a minute. What? Over his shoulder. I said, will you come back? And he goes, yeah, I will. And about 5 steps later, he's gone.
Wow.
And then next thing I know, it was time to get up. I don't know what happened. Spirit travel. To me, it's the God in us connecting. Maybe.
Well, when you read my book, you're going to have many stories like that you'll be like, oh, wow, happened to him too. So
please,
you'll appreciate that.
Yeah.
Listen, I could do this talk all night long. You're fascinating. You have been an amazing fountain of not like you could do this as a job. Like you have a great ability to engage, share.
Storytell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I
I've
think
spoken to a few different places, and I just want to, if there is anyone watching or who sees this that wants me to talk to kids,
That's
Kevin
great.
used to have major influence on the neighborhood kids. These kids were 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. They would knock on the door to see if he could come out and play. And he would go out and play with them and with Michael, his stepson. He'd have the football, one guy on his team, and the whole neighborhood's trying to drag him down. And he's standing there, he's like, whoa, go for the pass. And, and they're knocking him around. He throws the ball and scores a touch. It's just.
Well, that's great. That's a great idea.
I want every teenager to read Fearless, the story of Adam Brown. It's so poignant. It ties in with Kevin. Kevin and Adam used to ride around in Virginia Beach in poverty income areas, check out the kids playing hoops, kind of see the kids who reminded them of them when they were that age. Weren't rich. Are you kidding me? New Nikes? I had to save all year long for your new cleats.
Yeah, I got 4. I know all about that. Shoes are.
Thank you. They'd pick that kid out and they'd take him and go get him new Nikes and a new backpack and a new sweatshirt. That's how Kevin
Maybe
Adam
you
roll.
and I could organize something like that in Kevin's honor. Wouldn't that be cool? Trying to get new kicks for kids or something.
Well, and the kids who are impoverished are the ones who need to know about people like Kevin.
Right.
They need real heroes.
Their age.
Yeah, real heroes.
He was at a house party. Somebody offers him a mirror with lines on it. Kevin looked at it, looked at the guy. He goes, I already tried that shit. That shit sucks. What's wrong with you? And he walked away. He'd never tried a line in his life. He came home and said, Mom, somebody offered me Coke. You know how I got out of it? And that's how he got out of it.
Oh, smart.
And that's what Kevin means to me. He's that smart. And would pass things like that along. Joey, guess what I told him?
I bet he got that from his mama.
I don't know.
Resourceful, able to think on his feet.
Yeah.
Street smarts.
He knew how to appreciate a good double entendre. A good catch-22 kind of thing. He had that wit. And I know he got that from me. Because one day when he was a kid, we're walking down the street. There was a bale of hay on the side of the sidewalk. And we're walking along. He was about 7 or 6. And I said, Kevin. He looks at me and I go, hey. And he goes, hey. And I said, no, look. And then he saw the bale of hay. And he was like, hey. And I said, get it? We kind of, went along like that. And he was fabulous. He was a fabulous person.
Is there a place where people can go? I know you mentioned a Facebook group, the page.
Kevin, the Facebook page is Kevin Houston Memories.
Okay.
That's got pictures and stories and stuff like that.
Where else can they find more information?
Pardon me?
Is there anywhere else that you have information that you want to send people to?
All I have to do is YouTube him. The specific one that I would love people to YouTube if they really want to see. I worked with a high school senior, graduated 24. For his AV project, he did a short documentary about Kevin because he couldn't believe that Kevin walked the same halls he was walking. Kevin's jersey has been retired. And
That's
Joey made a shadow box and it hangs in the high school with his jersey and a plate, with information. And then it's got pictures of him from high school and team pictures. And this kid was so affected by it, Doug, and he wanted to do a documentary. So I helped him with information, met him, blah, blah. if you YouTube Kevin Houston SEAL, all kinds of stuff will come up. But there's one that says Kevin Houston short doc, and
Okay.
it's only about 6-7 minutes.
Matt, maybe if
long.
you find a link, you could include.
Yeah, I'll put a
it
link
and
into
share
YouTube
the
comments.
post, and we can share
Oh,
it on
that'd
the
be
face.
awesome.
We'll share it on the Justice for Job page with the links to all these things she wants us to include.
Sure. But definitely you can put my email if you want. And, you know, Kevin Houston's mom wants to
Hear stories.
talk about him.
Yeah.
You know, I would like to talk to the kids in detention, the juvenile detention. I want to talk to the kids in the middle school. I've been to Indian River High School, which is in a very nice part of Virginia Beach. It's not, I want to go to Portsmouth, which is not a very nice part of the Hampton Roads area. But you know what? I figured out why Kevin is biracial. And the reason he's biracial is it gives me access to go into areas like Portsmouth and talk to those kids. If he was just a plain old white kid, they wouldn't want me. I'm just some little white you should have seen. We had a fight at the Scope in Norfolk. There was a professional boxing. First time in 30 years. I had seats in the 5th row back. You want to talk about being a minority? I'm a minority 2 ways, my age and my color. But a friend of Craig's went with me as like my body buddy or whatever. He knows everybody in Norfolk, is born and raised here. And we had a blast, you know, it was fun. But I digress again.
I'm so thankful that you took the leap of faith, because I know that this has been something you've done before with the podcasting and stuff like that. I hope it was a enjoyable experience. I hope that you felt this hour and a half went by quickly.
Oh my gosh.
And thank you for giving us your time.
Thank you for listening to me. I love telling Kevin stories and Miranda stories. And it's just so unique. What's weird is being able to share all this and try and remember it and laugh inside and the joy and then we hang up and I retreat back in and I'm just me in this house.
Well, call me when you hang up.
Raising chickens. I got chickens in my backyard.
All right.
Well, hang tight. Don't hang up, because once I end the live stream, we'll still be able to talk. Okay. I want to end the show. First of all, I want to thank everybody for once again listening to this episode of the 2 Dates and a Dash podcast. Thank you to Jan for being our very special guest. Thank you to Bronwyn for being my co-host. It is very important that we share these stories, that the Gold Star families get to share their lost loved one through their eyes, and that there is a segment of the population that needs to hear this. And hopefully someone that knew Kevin, that didn't know anything about this podcast, hears this podcast, because it does get spread around, and they reach out to Jan and they share their memory of Kevin with you.
Please do.
So hang tight.
Thank you, everybody, so very much.
Thank you so much, Jan. Love you
so much.
God bless everybody. Go out and be kind to one another.
Thank you.